Welcome to the Bible, the Basketball, and the Briefcase podcast. I'm your host, Jay Martin. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast today. I'm honored to have you with me. We talk about the Bible. Some days we talk about basketball or sports. I have a really interesting sports interview coming up soon, which you're going to love. And also the Briefcase. We talk about the law. Today, I'm very excited to be talking about and really dedicating this podcast to my senior law partner, James Wallace. Jim passed away recently, and he was the founder of our law firm and was my mentor and was just really an incredible person. So really, most of my remarks today are going to be in some way related to Jim. I want to start by reading from Hebrews chapter 12. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. That's Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Hebrews 11 is what we call the Hall of Faith. It's about all that have gone before who, through many struggles, found a way to follow the Lord even through difficult times and to have this incredible legacy of faith. We all have a legacy. I'm holding my mother's Bible that I enjoy reading from so very much in this podcast. I have an incredible blessing in my life because of my mother's journey and because of her being faithful. She's one of those cloud of witnesses, I believe, that's cheering for me. Today is May 11th. Yesterday was Mother's Day, May 10th, and so I think a lot about my mother. May 10th is also Jim Wallace's birthday. And we have also determined that May 10th is Founders Day. And just as people help us spiritually, as certainly Jim encouraged us spiritually and being lawyers and being Christian lawyers, he also set the path for us to understand what it is to be a lawyer and to practice law. We need, both spiritually and professionally, people in our lives who can help us learn first what we're supposed to do as an attorney or as a Christian, and then also to try to find ways, practical ways, to live the life, to live that path, and to do those roles in such a way that we can help others and be pleasing to God. Jim Wallace led the way in helping us understand what it meant to be a good lawyer, to be an honest lawyer, to be a lawyer that honestly someone would want to use and maybe might end up also being a friend before it's over, before the case is over. There are lots of challenges in practicing law, and sometimes attorneys can be very aggressive against each other. Jim taught us always to do our best to work with opposing attorneys because in the long run, it really helps our clients so very much when we do that. So really just talk about some of the lessons that we learned from Jim, and then I think the influence that Jim had on our practice, and that I hope as president of the firm that I'm still trying to keep those core values and so that we're able to serve clients in a very good way. But first, Jim told us and taught us and demonstrated and modeled for us that our clients really, really matter. We're here to serve our clients first and foremost. So for Jim, that meant when he had divorce clients that before he would take on the case, he would tell them that he would discount his rates if they would spend the money to go try marital counseling before they would get a divorce. This was something that Jim believed very strongly in and would do. And so that he was actually not trying to run business off, but he was trying to make sure that people took every avenue to save their marriage before getting a divorce, if the divorce was necessary. So not only did he do that, but there are so many other examples of times I've seen him do extra work, go beyond what the normal attorney would do in maybe not even being paid for some of the work that he did. Or if the client just ran out of money, he would continue to work to try to make sure that a good result occurred. He tried to put people above profits. He tried to put the needs, the legal needs of his clients sometimes above his own needs. He didn't charge too much. He charged a very reasonable fee and a reasonable hourly rate, and he taught us to do that and to try to treat people fairly with what we charged. So he modeled for us what it meant to be an attorney, to be a professional. Another thing that Jim taught us is that whatever you're doing in life, you should have passion and you should have fun. Jim was this incredibly energetic guy that loved to bike, and he'd do the bridge race, the 100-mile race, and he would always participate in that. He was climbing and trained to climb a mountain, and I remember him running up and down the stairs here of our 12-story building, narrow, steep stairs, as he trained to climb Mount Rainier. And he then followed through, and he climbed very close to the top of Mount Rainier until a storm came, and they kind of got locked down on the side of the mountain in a tent, and then they weren't able to make the ascent. But he still had an incredible story to tell. Jim loved to tell stories, loved to tell adventure stories, and loved to hunt in Colorado. He had a passion for the outdoors. He had a passion to live this active life, and his passion was just infectious. He knew how to have fun, and that's something that he taught us, and something that all of us should take away, regardless of what our profession is. And practicing law can be very difficult. He taught us to have fun. He would walk around, and he would have these sayings that he did. One of the things he said quite often was, every day is a holiday when you're practicing law. And one day he would just bust into the office and say, Jay, do you believe they pay us to do this job? It's like being paid to eat ice cream. And sometimes I questioned his enthusiasm because I was having a hard day or maybe a hard month, but he never lost his enthusiasm for people and helping them by practicing law. He had this infectious enthusiasm, and he knew how to have fun. We had a lot of fun when Jim was in the office. I don't know that we have as much fun now that Jim's not here. I try to remember some of his old sayings and say those and keep those going so that we can have fun and try to make things lighthearted. But I think it's important lessons to learn as a professional, that you keep your passion, not only for your practice, but for what you like to do away from the office. And then also learn at the office how to have fun. And Jim understood how to do that. I remember as Jim began to transition away from the office and trying to wrap things up and slow things down. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. Jim was the same age that I am when I came to work for him. I was 27 and he was 56. Now I'm 56, the same age that Jim was when I came to work for him. But I spent from 27, and I'm still at his law practice, and I practiced law with him until he retired and went home. And I noticed with Jim that sometimes wrapping up and trying to complete and finish well is a hard thing to do, particularly when you have practiced law since your 20s like Jim did. He had so much of his life invested in his law practice and in our practices, and he didn't want to leave us too soon. But it was really quite an honor when Jim finally made the decision that we were ready, and he was ready to leave, and we were ready to go on without him at the law firm. It's always a difficult moment when you realize that you're now the principal and someone else is kind of walking away and going off into the shadows. That's something that we all have to learn and have to experience. And I think really a lesson for us, both from the devotion that I'm doing and also talking about Jim's life, is we all have to figure out a way to finish well and transition. And we also have to figure out a way to, when we finish, to have successors that can take over after us and continue to lead the way we lead. Jim did a great job of that. He had me, of course, Dale Duke, my law partner, was with Jim for many, many years, almost as long as me, just a couple of years short of me. And then Andrew Russell, too, who was also someone who Jim mentored and who was a partner at the firm. So I think it's so important to have 3 relationships in life. The first relationship, we need a mentor. We need someone that's ahead of us in the journey. And then we need friends, someone who's beside us, someone who can go alongside us and help us. And then we need a protege. We need someone who's coming up behind us who we can help and who we can mentor. My life is much richer because of the life of Jim Wallace. And I'm so thankful to his family, to Carter and Ashley and Jennifer, his children, and to his late wife, Pat, for sharing Jim with us and so much of his time spent at the office. And when he really wanted to be with his family, many times he was here instead. So I'm just so thankful for them and for the legacy that we have here. It's a legacy of excellence in practicing law, of integrity, and also of faith. We are a faith law firm. We all have embraced the difference that faith can make in being an attorney. And so that's very important. And those are the lessons that Jim left for each and every one of us. And with his recent passing, and I was given the honor of sharing the message at his funeral, and it was such an honor to stand there and realize that I got to be the last person to sort of speak words over Jim's life and about his life. And I wanted to take the time today because yesterday was Founders Day, and I wanted to find a way to honor Jim in this Founders Day and to do a special segment really of the podcast, hopefully to give you a little bit of understanding about how we view practicing law, but then also just sort of a tribute to Jim and his life, and as we celebrate this first Founders Day after Jim's passing. So I thank you for being with me. I'm sorry to be a little nostalgic today, but I don't apologize because I really think that Jim was someone that I wanted to honor. So thank you for letting me do that today. And if you don't have a mentor in your life, please find one. If you don't have a protege, please find one. If you don't have friends, make friends that can go with you through life. We need all 3 of those relationships. Well, thank you again for being part of this podcast. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.